Well, as you picked up this morning, boy, we've had a little bit of movement in politics. We're getting into the sharp end of an election year. Some political polls that have shown movement away from the incumbent government towards a centre-right coalition. Ministers under clouds and tax rearing its head as a contentious policy within the centre-left of politics as much as between the right and the left of politics. And a good person, I think, though he's gone a bit crazy and is now a New Zealand First supporter, a good person to, I think, take a weather check on things electoral and political is Chris Trotter, political commentator, and happy for Chris to join us now. Chris, nice to talk to you again, mate. How are you?
I'm very well. Always good to talk to you, Sean.
Boy, the game's afoot, isn't it?
Yes, the dogs have seen the rabbit, as they say.
Look, first let's start with these polls. And really funny, because you watch, and I've got to admit, you watch generally the centre-right commentators. Why won't those polls move? Why is it so close? We deserve to be killing them. And there's a little chink in this Talbot Mills poll that shows, well, what in electoral terms is quite a significant move, about a 6% swing. And suddenly it's all over for the Labour Party. But then we get another poll out just a couple of days later that says, maybe things haven't changed that much. What is happening?
Well, the country is split right down the middle. And that whole process of polarisation, which I think got underway in a serious sense during the worst of the COVID-19 pandemic, has only got worse. The country is resolving itself into two almost mutually incomprehensible blocks, and people live within those blocks, and I think that explains the puzzlement. And it's very strong. You hear it all the time, particularly from those who are opposed to the government of the day. They cannot understand why Labour and its allies continue to hold so much support, because, and I remember this from years ago, Sean, people way back in the day when I was a young man just getting really interested in politics, they would always say, I don't understand how that bloke Muldoon can still be Prime Minister.
Yeah, because not everyone thinks like you do, and you expect everyone, it's when you put yourself at the centre of the rational universe. Yeah.
That's right. I don't understand it because nobody I know votes for him.
Yeah.
And that is something I have heard repeated in one form or another, for the best part of 50 years. And it's very much a case of we move in circles where more often than not we agree about things because, that's why people are friends, that's why they're mates. And it's hard sometimes to take yourself out of your own bubble and just try and get an objective view of things. But I think what the polls are telling us and what they have told us consistently for months and months now is that the country is split down the middle. It's going to be a very close election. It may hinge on someone like Winston Peters moving up from 3.5 or 4 to 5%. Because, even if you look at the best poll for National, which was the Talbot Mills poll, I think, which put them a good 5 points ahead of Labour, New Zealand First was just shy of the 5% threshold. If it crossed it, then it would be 48-48. If you just count National and then all the rest. And, what happened yesterday, I think, just throws yet another twist into this game.
You're talking about the tax thing?
Yeah, because I think Labour is being very, very sanguine if it assumes it's going to be business as usual with the Greens and Te Pāti Māori.
Yeah, and that's the other thing I think, Chris, in the last, I think Te Pāti Māori never played the game But the Greens have clearly reached that stage that all minor or support parties do in an electoral cycle where you leave home and you have a crack at your natural ally because you've got to differentiate yourself. And the Greens have declared it's game on, haven't they?
Well, yes. I think their own membership is really at a point now where they are not going to sanction a coalition agreement or a confidence and supply agreement with Labor unless Labor makes some movement towards their policy positions. I think the Maori Party is even more adamant in that respect. And I think so will ACT, just quietly, be adamant in that respect. I think the two large parties have got to get their heads out of the sand on this. Because there is no point in ACT building itself up to 12 to 15% only to become a meek little lamb the moment.
Yeah, and I don't think they will. I actually think they're probably going to poll better than that, to be honest, too, Chris.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised because they've done so well. But what this means is that the country is heading in for extremely fractious politics. Not just in the lead up to the election, but in the weeks and months after the election, because we will face something which is unprecedented for us. And if it happens, and it may not, the game may continue to be played as it has always been played, but it may not. And if it doesn't, then you're going to have people like James Shaw and Marama Davidson and the leaders of the Maori Party saying to Labor, no, you don't. We are not going to come into line. If you're not willing to negotiate seriously with us, then we're going to sit on the crossbenches.
Yeah.
If Winston makes it across the line, I strongly suspect he'll be sitting there in the crossbenches with them.
No, I don't think he can now afford to renege. He said he's not going to back Labor. He'll do everything he can to keep Labor out.
That's right. So he's not going to go with them, but he may not go with National either.
You still voting for? You're still planning to vote New Zealand First?
Well, I'm especially after Chippy's. As someone was saying to me last night, I guess it's chicken and Chipkins, is it? But I
didn't know you were meeting with members of the Labor cabinet last night.
Well, therein lies another whole discussion.
Yeah,
because
let's look at the tax thing. Let's look at the tax thing.
It is really clear.
Yeah, that's
clear that Robertson and Parker are not on board with this decision in anything other than I'm a good soldier, yes sir, kind of way.
Yeah. So there's internal division there, and I think Chris Hipkins is doing what Chris Luxon is doing. Chris Luxon will not meaningfully engage on some issues that would get him or strengthen his support because he wants to be woke and he wants to appear to the middle. And Chris Hipkins isn't going to go all working class hero, eat the rich, because he wants to appeal to the middle. They're both trying to be moderate and I'd say peeing off their natural constituency.
Yeah, and I think there's another really big and very false assumption in Hipkins and Luxon's calculations, and that is there is no middle.
Yeah.
If the last few years around the world has taught us anything, it is that there is no middle. I mean, people in the United States, particularly liberals, you listen to MSNBC or CNN, they're always talking about responsible Republicans. Well, there aren't any responsible Republicans anymore. They are all Trumpites, right? I mean, so stop looking for this mythical middle. The country is split. People have chosen their teams. Now, all that Chippy has done from Vilnius is piss off his team. That's all he's done. He hasn't won any more votes because they're all on the other side anyway. They're not coming back.
I think this is interesting, Chris. And I know I extracted the Michael about you saying you were going to vote for New Zealand First. Then, a couple of weeks ago, I did an interview with Jill Ovens, right? former unionist. I'm sure you'll know Jill.
Yep, I know Jill.
And she sets up a political party because she says, screw Labour. I was just amazed at that. But it seems to me that this is a phenomenon that is increasing, and that is people who I would have put purely in one camp say, no, I've had enough.
Well, I mean, there is still a coherent body of thought in terms of mainstream government that says you really should try to match your revenue with your expenditure. Right? Now, the National Party says, yes, we agree with that. We're going to look really, really hard at the expenditure.
Yeah.
Right? Now, the other side of the political fence is supposed to say, no, we're not going to start cutting things because our health system, our education system are right on the bones of their ass anyway and struggling to deliver what we expect them to deliver. And we've got climate change coming and, there's a whole host of things. So we've got to look at our revenue. Now, that's a perfectly rational debate for a sophisticated society to have. It pretty much resolves the great debates over, decades in this country. Except Labour has reneged. Labour won't talk about revenue anymore. I mean, this is the second time we've had a captain's call, not while I'm leader.
Yeah.
No. I mean, nobody I've heard this morning has raised the issue. Isn't the Labour Party supposed to be a democratic organisation? Yeah. Isn't the Labour Party supposed to determine its own policy? Since when did the leader of the Labour Party become the Führer of the Labour Party? I mean, it's.
Sorry, Chris,
it's
are you saying?
You're supposed to do things?
Eva, you're a bit of Godwin's law. I think you're a bit of. Are you saying that Chris Hipkins is acting like Hitler?
Oh, what I'm saying.
You used the term Führer. I'm just clarifying.
Yeah, that's right, because that indicates a kind of politics where the leader makes all the decisions, where there isn't a democratic process, not even apparently the rudimentary democratic politics of having a cabinet, that debates matters and decides if the matters are contentious by majority vote which direction they're going to travel in. I mean, if you have decisions from on high clearly made without consultation, then you've got a very different style of governance within your party from what it says in your constitution.
Well, look, I'm going to ask you another question then. And now that you're New Zealand First supporter, I know that you don't have the ins into the Labour Party that you used to have. Is Chris Hipkins' leadership safe in the run-up to this election?
I think it's safe only because of the proximity of the election, because Grant Robertson has ruled himself out, and because looking around there is nobody else at this stage who you could credibly advance as a Labour leader, even if you wanted to risk it. So in that sense, almost certainly not. But there will be gnashing of teeth. There will be dark brows in the Labour cabinet, not to mention the Labour caucus and the Labour Party this morning, because they. You see, this is the terribly stupid aspect of doing things in secret, Sean. I mean, why not just tell the country? Look.
Yeah. Well, look, I'm looking at the Post this morning, not exactly a bastion of right-wing journalists, but its headline is, Hipkins outflanks Robertson on tax. Now, that headline screams internal party dissent,
Oh, yeah. And look, to be fair to Grant, I mean, he's doing his very best to be honest and loyal.
Yeah.
Right, but he can't be both without indicating that this is a prime ministerial diktat.
Yeah.
That has been issued from the other side of the world, leaving the cabinet to either sack him or back him.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd say to Chris, geez, we're going to look back on this Labor government, the 20 to 2023 Labor government, and say, what a friggin' waste. You get an historic majority. You get an historic majority under MMP, an actual parliamentary majority, and what do you do with it? Well, sweet Fanny Adams.
I mean, it is just so sad because, the thing to do is you tell the country we're in the middle of a big study on tax. Yeah. We think our tax system is unfair and we think it's ill-designed for the pressures, the stresses that are going to come on our economy in the future. So we've undertaken a work program. When it's finished, we're going to tell you what it is. We're going to say to you, if this is what you want, vote for us and get it. Yeah. If it's not what you want, vote for someone else.
Yeah.
Because there's no other way to do this. You can't impose these sort of things without a mandate. We're looking for a mandate. All the polls tell us that people want something done about tax. Well, here you go.
Yeah.
Here's your chance. I mean, that's what Mickey Savage did with the social welfare.
Yeah, well, Chris Hipkins ain't no Mickey Savage. That's just
he ain't no Mickey Savage. But, what Savage showed was you come up with a program, you put it to the people voted either up or down, and then you can introduce it, and your opposition is left, choking on your dust, because what can it say?
Yeah.
You didn't surprise the public. You told them exactly what you were going to do. You asked them to vote it up or vote it down. They voted it up. Where does that leave the opposition? Yeah. But no, you do it in secret, and full credit to Nicola Willis. She dug it out, put it in the public, and instead of having the courage of their convictions, instead of Chris Hipkins having the courage to say, yep, and we're going to put it to the people, because that's how democracy works. He says, not while I'm leader, we're not. End of story.
Which makes you, and look, I've had a number of texts, Chris, they want a straight answer. You're still going to party vote New Zealand First?
At the moment, that's my intention.
Okay, very good. Chris, that's a fascinating take, and I thank you very much. A question I've been asking all my guests this morning, what are you doing for Matariki, and what does it mean to you?
Very little. Not so much Matariki. I watched the TV last year, I think it was, and it was a very impressive performance. But it's not part and parcel of my culture. I do my best to try and get across it. But it doesn't really sing to me in the way it so clearly sings to the
You'd be more interested
people.
in Bastille Day, wouldn't you? Viva la Revolution.
Yeah, well, the French Revolution is a cautionary tale. I mean, it's stirring in the beginning, but then it takes a rather nasty turn. And
be careful what you wish for, Chris, I think. Is the moral of
be
that
careful. Be careful.
Always a pleasure, mate. We'll talk again soon. Thanks for your time this morning. Cheers. Chris Trotter, political commentator, still voting New Zealand First, and says Hipkins, well, geez, that's pretty strong, actually. Is Chris Hipkins being Führer-like on this tax policy issue?